It's been a while since I visited a retro title on this channel. Today, I would like to take you guys to the golden age of PlayStation 1. I wanted to talk about MediEvil series for a while, and the most recent rumors about the MediEvil 2 remake helped me to find an excuse for it. I don't think I would be alone if I were to say that I used to find MediEvil quite frightening. The menu, the atmosphere, the enemies, they were all too much for 4-year-old me back in 1998, when the first MediEvil was launched. However, the sequel was rather grotesque within some of the levels, but it wasn't as frightening but rather amusing. I'm Arcadenaut here, and I will introduce one of the forgotten mascots of PlayStation, Sir Daniel Fortescue and his gothic, heroic journey. Released in 2000 for the Sony PlayStation, MediEvil 2 is simply an action-adventure game developed by Sony Computer Entertainment. As the sequel to the 1998 cult classic MediEvil, the sequel builds upon its predecessor's formula, offering players a blend of hack-and-slash combat, puzzle-solving, and platforming elements. Sir Daniel Fortescue was a knight of Gallowmere who became the king's champion and led the Gallowmere army against an attack by the evil sorcerer Zarok. However, Sir Dan was killed quite unfortunately during the first volley of arrows. History came to remember him as the hero of Gallowmere. However, other heroes in the afterlife did not accept him as a hero. So, Zarok cast the unholy magic to revive zombies, skeletons, and other terrifying beings, and Sir Daniel also finds himself alive once again, seizing this opportunity to prove himself as the true hero of Gallowmere. As this is the first game's plot, MediEvil 2 takes place 500 years into the future, during the Victorian era. Now resting ever peacefully in the British Museum of Kensington, London, Sir Daniel Fortescue finds himself within the eerie streets of Victorian-era London, this time awakened by another evil sorcerer called Palethorn. MediEvil 2 begins with Lord Palethorn discovering the antagonist of the first medieval Zarok spellbook, containing spells of chaos and darkness, and of course, resurrection. Palethorn then, intrigued by the dark powers within this book, attempts to harness its magic. However, his inexperience and greed led to unintended consequences. Instead of gaining control over the dark forces, Palethorn inadvertently resurrects an army of undead, including Sir Daniel Fortescue. Awakened once more, Sir Dan finds himself in an unfamiliar time and place. London in the 19th century starkly contrasts the medieval world he once knew. The city is a blend of industrial progress, zombies, grotesque circus creatures, living pumpkins, and much more, offering a familiar setting, introducing new characters and plotlines that enrich the overall narrative. And of course, Dan's primary objective is to stop Lord Palethorn from using Zarok's spellbook to conquer London, and eventually the world. Differing from its prequel, Sir Dan is not alone in his journey. One of the most notable characters is Kia, an ancient Egyptian princess who has also been resurrected in the modern era, and slowly turns out to be Sir Dan's love interest and reason to travel across time to defeat Jack the Ripper. I will get to that brilliant part of the narrative soon, so let's talk about other support characters and adversaries of MediEvil 2 first. Unlike Zarok, who was just a straightforward embodiment of evil, Palethorn is more complex. His motivations are rooted in a desire for power and recognition. He appears to be calmer and more collected than Zarok, even offering Sir Daniel a chance to join him in his quest. On the contrary, Sir Daniel is accompanied by Professor Hamilton Kift. This scientist provides Dan with new gadgets and weapons to aid in his quest if the players defeat a specific number of enemies at each level and then collect the chalice of that level. Kift is dedicated to defeating Palethorn, giving briefings about Sir Daniel's next mission, whether it be to finding Zarok's spellbook, defeating Palethorn's machination in a boxing match, or defeating the vampires appearing with Pelton's magic. As Dan progresses through the game, he explores a variety of locations, from the British Museum filled with moving armor and dinosaur bones trying to stop Sir Dan, or vampire-filled menace. Each level is designed to reflect the diverse aspects of Victorian London. And Medieval 2's level design is more varied and richer than the prequel. However, the overall gameplay length felt short. Maybe it's just me, but I completed Medieval 2 in around 6 hours, collecting every chalice to unlock every weapon and reaching the supposedly hidden ending, that is, supposedly teasing the sequel that never happened. The puzzles mainly depended on items. You collect keystones to unlock a door, head to another place to find another item, and head back to the level to journey further. Simple yet fluid puzzle sequences that match PlayStation 1 era platformer style. And before delving deeper into Medieval 2 Legacy, its gameplay and overall design, I would like to talk about Jack the Ripper and the time travel narrative of Medieval 2. This part of Medieval 2, adding some thrill, romance and a quest for revenge, really affected me when I was a kid, and I still find it quite touching and unique. Remember, this was written in 2000 and this is around 50 to 60% of the game. Sir Dan is sent to Wolfram Hall to fight against the vampires, while Kia, willing to help Dan, is sent to Whitechapel. After Sir Daniel is done with the vampires, Professor Kift informs him that Kia is still in Whitechapel and might be in trouble. Furious towards Professor Kift, Sir Dan quickly heads to Whitechapel, finds some gentleman clothes and a beard to blend into Whitechapel community, and learns that Jack the Ripper might be after Kia. And unfortunately, Sir Dan's fears become a reality. He was too late. Kia died in the arms of Sir Dan, while Jack the Ripper vanished. Heartbroken and unmotivated, Sir Dan quits chasing after Pelton and finds himself in the sewers. These weird sewer people call Sir Dan their protector and savior, requesting him to save their woman from a kraken-like monster there. Still unwillingly helping those in need, Sir Dan learns about a time machine, a gadget that Professor Kift abandoned and gave up on. Long story short, Sir Dan finds the gizmo, goes way back in time, finds himself again in sewers, and this time betraying the sewer people to steal their time orb. Dresses up as the sewer chieftain to finally meets Jack the Ripper just in time before Kia's death. Sir Dan fights against this notorious killer of London's history, saving his beloved Kia and meeting the other Dan from the previous timeline. Both shake their hand, combining into a new Sir Daniel with a golden armor. This whole journey takes around maybe 1 hour to 2 hours of gameplay time within the Medieval 2 journey, but seeing a protagonist lost and maybe broken after losing his beloved one, actually giving up on everything, and then the whole time travel concept was really inspiring even for its time. These kind of games, characters, narratives and level designs make me appreciate the old games a lot, and I really wish to see this narrative again if this whole Medieval 2 remake project is real and going. One of the key aspects of Medieval 2's legacy is its distinctive art style and humor. Medieval 2 is not a horror game, it's an action platformer with gothic elements, which might be scary for anyone who is around below age of 10, I suppose. Similar PlayStation 1 titles like Jersey Devil and 40 Wings had the same kind of atmosphere. They had this dark, mysterious platformer atmosphere that seemed to be thrilling for younger audiences. However, Medieval 2's dark, yet cartoonish aesthetic still feels quite unique, striking a balance that few games manage to achieve. The humor, often dark and self-deprecating, is a defining characteristic of the series. Sir Dan loses his head to seagulls around, planting his head on greenish zombie hands to traverse into narrow paths. All these aspects feel like a blend of humor and heroism that is quite specific to MediEvil and Serdan. And at the core of the gameplay is its combat system, as a skeleton knight armed with variety of weapons ranging from melee to ranged options. Serdan makes simple sword slashes, defending with his shield, or even throw his left arm like a boomerang to deal damage from afar. I would say the combat is fast-paced, but it is also quite focused on the chalice weapons you unlock by defeating specific amounts of enemies. If you just clear the levels without collecting these chalices, you will have some difficulties when fighting some of the enemies or even bosses. Weapons like hammer or even flame crossbow really help you to defeat some of the enemies easier, as they have their own unique attacks and varied damages. Since each weapon has its own unique characteristics and uses, my advice would be to use the newest weapon you acquire. Besides these melee weapons, you will also acquire ranged weapons such as the crossbow, pistols, blunderbuss, or even a Gatling gun if you collect all of the chalices and unlock all of the weapons. Especially the Gatling gun would help you to clear the final level and as well as the final boss easier, so it might be best to keep that in mind. Differing from the other games of its era, MediEvil 2 involves more than just button mashing. It would be really wise to manage your inventory, especially for your sub-weapons like pistols and crossbows, switch between weapons to suit different situations, shielding and dodging when necessary to avoid unnecessary damage, since each resource is quite limited in MediEvil 2. The gold coins that you can collect, the healing fountains and even the shields, so it is wise to keep Serdan's health potions full and to gather each gold coin you run into. I remember running out of health potions and fountains during the last level of MediEvil 2, and I remember soft locking myself at the very end. It might sound a bit cruel, though it's not a big deal if you're a platformer player, or using the magical ways of emulation. MediEvil 2 basically rewards players who approach combat clever rather than just button mashing, and might soft block you if you're not careful about your resources. Although MediEvil 2 might seem like a short action platformer experience, it is still one of the cult classics of the PlayStation 1 era that is definitely worthy to try out. It masterfully blends gothic horror with humor and adventure, with one of the most iconic mascots of PlayStation, Sir Daniel Fortescue. Whether you're a long-time fan of the series or a newcomer intrigued by the rumors of a potential remake, MediEvil 2 is definitely worth revisiting. Some might find the prequel superior, but Serdan's Victorian-era adventure still offers a memorable journey. And trust me, the eerie charm of MediEvil 2 is just as captivating today as it was back in 2000. I might stick around with retro titles for a bit, so if there is any title that you want me to delve further, be sure to share them by the comments below. Any humble support through YouTube, Join or Patreon is really appreciated, and I will see you soon by my next video.